Hi everyone! If you are new to my membership, I am Kelly Sansone, the artist behind Kelly Sansone Creates. Today's tutorial is going to be a super duper adorable beach scene with some flip-flops and footprints heading to the water. I'll go over supplies with you in just a minute, but I wanted to let you know how this is going to work. In a moment here, I'm going to switch the angle of my camera and you're going to have a bird's eye view so that you can see exactly what I'm doing with my hands, my brushes, and how I mix my paints. I hope you enjoy. Okay guys, so you can use any kind of canvas that you want. I just happen to be using a canvas sheet. This one is 9 by 12 and I have it secured to my work surface with some tape. You can use an easel with a regular stretched canvas, you can use a canvas board, you can use whatever materials you have on hand, even mixed media paper. This is the painting we are doing tonight. It is an adorable beach scene here and super duper easy. Even if you've never picked up a paintbrush before, you will be able to create this adorable painting. Okay, so for materials, I have my paper palette here. We're using burnt umber, titanium white, phthalo or phthalocyanine blue. It's the same thing, just different manufacturers label it differently. This is Hansa yellow, or you can use cadmium yellow. And this right here is cadmium red. Okay, to start, oh, and the brushes. I am going to be using this wide flat brush, also called a wash brush, a smaller flat brush, and a very small round brush to do the thin detail work and outlines. So to start, we are going to take some burnt umber, some titanium white, and just give that a good mixing, and add a touch of yellow. It's going to look kind of funny on your paper, but it always looks different on the canvas. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to paint, doesn't matter if you go side to side, up and down, whatever you want to do, until you get about 2 inches from the bottom. And if you run out of paint, I hardly ever mix enough at the same, in the beginning, so you can just remix. And if you notice, sand on the beach really isn't perfect. It has different colors. So it's really not going to be the end of the world if you have to remix your color. Whoops, that is a smidge too dark. A few times, or even if there's some streakiness, it's really going to be okay. And you can see I'm getting some paint on my work surface. That's okay. If you have a work surface that you're worried about, you can wipe it up right away while it's still wet. Or you can wait until it dries. If it's a surface like this is vinyl, you can just scratch it right off. Or if you have alcohol, like an alcohol-based hand sanitizer, that will help you remove the color as well. And I did say I was going to use the wash brush. I used the wrong brush for this, which is why it's taking so long. So, see, even professional artists make mistakes. So I'm switching to my large wash brush here. And I'm mixing more of this beautiful beigey sand color here. And this will make it go much, much faster. So if you're an artist that happens to have a large stock of supplies on hand, you can use what is called acrylic glazing liquid if your paint is a little too thick, as mine is. If you don't have glazing liquid, that's completely okay. You can just dip your brush in some water. The only difference is that glazing liquid is also made out of acrylic polymers, so it blends into the paints a little bit better and doesn't affect the color as much. It also won't break down over time like water mixed with paint will. You just keep going all the way down till, like I said, you're about 2 inches from the bottom. Just have fun with this. Painting is relaxing and should never be stressful. I'm just covering up. I see some white specks of canvas showing through ever so often. I guess where my paint was too thick. So I'm just going in to cover those. Different surfaces are going to be either easier or harder to paint. If you get the higher quality canvas, you get the smoother it's going to be. If you make your own, stretch your own canvas and you know, gesso it, you can make it as smooth as a piece of wood. If you use gessoed board, it will be completely smooth with no texture to it. So depending on what you are painting on, your painting will be a little easier to get the smooth colors and smooth coverage than others. If you're just starting out, I do highly recommend these canvas sheets. They come in packs of, you know, 10 to I guess 40 depending on where you get them. They're really easy to just tape down to a surface and get going really quickly. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about making this too smooth here because we're going to do the water here in just a moment. So you're going to rinse all of the paint out of your wash brush, and we're going to use that again to mix and paint the water. So you're going to really get as much paint out as you can. And then dry it. I have a rag off to the side. You can use paper towels or really anything that you need or have access to. Okay, so for the water, I'm going to take some Phthalo Blue and some of my yellow, and I'm going to get this kind of turquoisey green color. And then I'm going to add some white. If you want it bluer, just add a little bit more blue to it. If you want it greener, add more yellow to it. I think I want mine a smidge bluer. Okay, there we go. And add some water. Or white. Not water. White. Okay. And again, I'm not too worried about mixing it perfectly. This time I'm going to start at the bottom of the canvas and this time I'm going to focus a little bit more on going straight across because I'm going to start blending here in a minute. Okay, just make sure I'm getting all those white spots. Now, without rinsing my brush, I'm just going to dip straight into white, and I'm going to go over my blue here. Back and forth. Just smooth it. Just keep adding white if you need to. This is going to cause it to be a little bit darker on the bottom here, which I'm going to fix because I messed up a bit. And then later as you get closer to the sand. Okay? So I'm going to come back with this blue and fix my little boo-boo here. And make the bottom darker again because I got white on it. Okay, so you should be able to see a fading effect here, darker going into lighter. Okay, now I am rinsing my brush, and I'm going to switch over to the thinner flat, which I had mistakenly used to start my background before. Okay, and I'm just going to dip it right into white. If your white got really muddy with color, you can get some fresh right now. And I'm going to hold my brush vertically here, and I'm just going to kind of do a curvy line here. And that's going to be where my foam is. And then I'm just coming in and filling in where the space between the blue and the white. Not worrying too much about perfection with the coverage here, because we're going to go through and blend here in just a minute. Even if you swoop a little bit below, not to worry. Now I'm switching my brush, and I'm going to come and just kind of blend that edge here. Okay. Now I want some pretty stark white, so I'm going to add some fresh white. And then I'm just going to dip right in and go back over that edge. If the blue is showing through too much, feel free to rinse your brush. If you don't mind it, then just leave it. If you just heard a little jingle, my dishwasher is done. I do have my studio in my home, so you hear all kinds of things on my videos. Okay. And again, I'm just going to come in, try to blend a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to rinse. Oops, blend a bit more. And then I'm going to stick in the white again and just go back over that edge. Okay. Easy peasy, right? So now we are going to start with our flip-flops. Okay, so for this, I'm going to use my thin detail brush or round brush, but first I'm going to mix the color. So I'm going to use the brush I just was using with the white. I'm going to rinse that out as best I can and dry it off. And I chose to make these a yellowy orange. Oops, dripped a little water. A yellowy orange color. You can do whatever color you want. It's not a big deal, but just for sake of this tutorial, I'm going to continue with the yellowy orange. So I need a tiny touch of cadmium red and a bit more yellow, because the cadmium red is so intense. You're going to want more yellow than red, and you'll get an orange color. And then to kind of brighten it up a bit, I'm adding some white. Okay, so we're going to start with an outline. So I'm just kind of rolling my brush around in the paint, and oops. You're going to want to make sure, of course, your painting is dry here up in the sand, and mine is a little tacky, so I am going to use my heat gun here. Okay. I ended up with a hair in my ocean, so I'm just trying to get that out. Okay, so back to the flip-flops. I'm rolling my brush around in the paint, and now I'm just going to do the outline of a flip-flop. So if you look at flip-flops, they curve in on one side, but the other side, the outside of the foot, is pretty flat. At least the flip-flops that I was referencing when doing this painting, the sample painting. So that's what I'm doing with mine. Pretty straight on one side and curved on the other. Now you can just fill it in with this round brush, or you can use your flat brush and come through and fill it in with that. One thing to note, when you use yellows and reds, they tend to be transparent, even if you have added some white to it. So you may want, personal preference here, you may want to go through and do a second coat once the first has dried. But again, that is just personal preference, and you do not have to do that if you are happy with how it looks. I'm going to come over here and do the opposite, the other shoe, so the opposite. So the curve will be here on this side, and then this side will be relatively flat. And again, fill it in. Okay, so we are going to work on some shadows and wet sand here. It's going to be the same color. So we're going to mix a darker sand color. So this time, instead of adding yellow, we're just going to do brown, the burnt umber, and just white. But it's going to come out darker than our base sand color. Okay. So I'm just taking one of my flat brushes to mix. I'm going to take some brown and a touch of white here. So it's going to be a couple shades darker than our base sand color. So the first thing we're going to do is the wet sand where the shore is. So again, I'm holding my brush vertically and just going very carefully along where that water line is. If you mess up, it's okay. You can always go back over with white when it's dry. And now I'm just going to wipe off, either with a paper towel or on your palette, some of the paint. And I'm just going to come here and try to blend this edge. And if it's gotten a little too dry, you can dip in water or use that glazing liquid and just blend that edge a bit so it doesn't look quite so harsh. Now you can see the difference. I used water here to thin this out versus the glazing liquid that I used last time, and you can, I don't know how well you can see it with the lighting that I have, but it's definitely a difference in color and texture. Okay, so you will smooth that out. And blend a bit. There we go. now I'm going to switch to my round brush. And I'm going to do the shadow. So the sunlight is going to be coming from this side. So I'm just going to roll my brush in the paint, and then just on the left side of each sandal, I'm going to do a brown line. This is just going to look like a shadow on the sand. Okay. I'm getting a little bit of that glazing liquid or water mixture there to thin it out a bit because it was a bit thick. This batch of burnt umber that I have is mighty thick. And I can't wait for the tube to be empty, and it almost is, because it's quite hard to work with. I don't know if I got a bad batch or maybe one that had been sitting for too long or what, but I will be glad when it's gone. Okay. Excuse me. So there's the shadow. So now we're going to work on wet footprints in the sand. Okay? We're going to do the same thing. We're going to now sketch out the outline. So this one will come right in front of the flip-flop here. And this is just a sketch. We'll fill it in. But you're just going to do the outline of a foot. So if you look at your foot, if you step into the sand or whatever, if you have high arches, as I do, you'll have this indent here. And you'll also have a small curved line there, and the toe box, this area, is wider as well. And then you do the opposite on the other side. This one, I'm going a little bit lower because I want it to look like I'm stepping into the water. Okay, so since it's the same color as our shadow, we may have to darken this a bit. So I'm just for the purposes of this sketch, I am dipping in straight brown to show you, and I will fix that as I'm painting. I will just darken my color. Okay, so now you can fill it in with your thin brush, or you can go through and move over to a slightly thicker brush and fill it in. If you've mixed with water or glazing medium, it might be a little streaky and you may want to do a second coat. Totally up to you. And this one I messed up a little bit, so I'm going to try to fix the flub a bit, but I'm not going to worry about it too much either, because this is just a fun piece. And we're not going to worry about mistakes or getting everything perfect. We're just going to have fun and get a painting on canvas. Okay, so yeah, you can see that one's maybe a gorilla foot. I don't know. I really didn't do that great of a job on that one, but you get the idea. You can always fix it to look like this or paint over it if you're not happy with how it looks. And then to do the toes, for the big toe, it's on the inside of the foot, you're going to do a circle. And then for the other toes, you're just going to dot, dot. Okay, so I do apologize, but my camera apparently overheated for some reason, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what got cut off from the last video. So I did the toes, so you paint a circle for the big toe and then just dot, dot, dot for the remainder toes. Excuse my bear claw foot here. I don't know what I was doing there, but anyway. And then for the flip-flops, I'll show you the movement here just with a dry brush. You're going to make a line and then loop around to where the start of the heel of the shoe is, or flip-flop. And then you'll do the on the opposite side, and the same thing on this, a little line, and then up like this, and up like that.